Hi guys, I'm just clocking on after Shabbos has ended, and I saw this clip of Ben Shapiro at Megyn Kelly's one of her live events, and he's so, in classic Ben Shapiro style, explains with such clarity and moral precision the problem with Tucker Carlson's actions recently over the last few years, and he so perfectly and precisely pushes back at all of Megyn Kelly's challenges to him that he is in any way being anything from petty to unnecessarily divisive to being ungenerous towards Tucker Carlson in interpreting his actions. This is a must watch because I think it will give you, the viewers, the ammunition to be able to push back against the nonsense that we are seeing from the woke right, or as Netanyahu termed it, the woke Reich. Have a watch of this really, really important conversation. It's worth watching.
I would hate for people to believe that the Nick Fuentes sort of, my problems with Nick Fuentes are about me, because they really are not. They are about the fact that Nick Fuentes is a truly horrifying person who believes truly horrifying things. I mean, again, there is a reason why Charlie Kirk despised him. There is a reason why every mainstream political commentator has been highly critical of him. It's the reason why these are not arguments. This is not a person who's making arguments. He is a Hitler-loving troll, and I say that advisedly. He literally says on his show that he loves Adolf Hitler. Okay, so the reason this has come up in recent weeks is because Tucker, your guest last night, decided to have him on last week and to completely gloss him, in my opinion. And you can make up your own opinion as to what you think Tucker was doing during that interview, but I know what it looks like when Tucker Carlson decides to be an aggressive interviewer, when he decides to ask difficult questions of people. Tucker is eminently capable of doing that. He did it to Ted Cruz quite thoroughly. But he decided, for any number of reasons, and I try not to attribute motivations to people, that he was going to treat Fuentes with kid gloves, that he was going to not ask him about any of the things that I've just mentioned, literally any of them, and to essentially normalize Fuentes, act as a sort of gateway drug, or as what I've called Tucker, as an ideological launderer of bad ideas over the last couple of years. And this is not coming from a place of animus for Tucker on a personal level. I've known Tucker for a very long time. Tucker and I, whenever we're in personal situations, we get along great. I think I saw that Tucker talked about how we were at Charlie's memorial in the vice president's box together, and he's correct. I mean, we saw each other, we said hello, we talked, it was very friendly, and all of that. And it's also true that a couple of days after Charlie's murder, he reached out and he called me and he said, listen, I know that we're at odds, and we've been at odds for a number of reasons, mainly political. I mean, again, on a personal level, I'd go fishing with Tucker anytime. The real question is, for me, I got into this business because I care about the ideas and I care about the ideals. And so when you're determining what is conservatism, what should the future of America look like, and where do you draw the lines, those are the questions that I need to answer in my job. For me, my business is really not about friendship. I have lots of friends, people who I love, with whom I disagree on politics and don't believe they should be leaders in the conservative movement, for example. And that, to me, is the real question. In any case, Tucker reached out. He said, we've had a bunch of disagreements, and what if we could put those aside and align toward the DSA in particular, is what he mentioned. And I said, Tucker, you're totally right. Let's do that. That would be great. In fact,
the TSA?
The DSA, oh, the Democratic Socialists of
Why
America.
the TSA? How did that bring you together?
The Democratic Socialists of America. And the reason
I know.
Yes, and the reason that I'm taking out my
TSA only
phone
divides people.
is because, yes, the reason I'm taking out my phone is because I don't just, I like to evidence what I'm saying with, actual evidence. So I texted him. And the text exchange was very nice. I mean, here's what the actual text exchange went like after the call. So I texted him and I said, thanks so much for calling. It means the world. It truly does. Should we do a show together talking about the DSA threat, Democratic Socialists of America threat, and orienting in the same direction? Happy to do whatever it takes to bring everyone back together for the fight that matters. And Tucker then wrote back, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to spend the next week or two thinking about how to be most effective. The country is clearly on the brink. I reached out repeatedly after that. Nothing happened. And again, I thought it was a good idea at the time. I think I felt differently after I saw what he did with Nick Fuentes, and after he proceeded, in my opinion, to spend the subsequent weeks doing literally nothing to fight the left. I say this with sadness because Tucker used to be, I think, a deeply important part of the conservative push to win. the number of times that Tucker Carlson has mentioned Zohran Mamdani since October 5th on his show is once. And it was in the context of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson talking about the appeal of Zohran Mamdani. Just by way of contrast, not because I'm a perfect representative here, but because you talked about Zohran Mamdani a lot. A lot of us have. Since October 5th, I did 17 separate shows on Zohran Mamdani, including 4 in the last week before the election. Okay, because when you're orienting against the left, you really should orient against the left.
Okay, so a lot in there. I think, just to be clear, so the breakdown from the detente after Charlie was him interviewing Fuentes? Was that the next thing that happened that led to the blow up?
I mean, yes. I mean, okay. I had not spoken a word. There
so
were
it wasn't
things
that he attacked you, or you had
no,
something?
I don't care about people attacking me. And I don't think Tucker cares about people attacking him. I mean, again, we're professionals. We're in a business where people comment on what we say publicly. Again, this is why I think you and I differ on our angle with regard to, for example, Candace Owens. I think that what Candace Owens is doing right now is evil. It is evil what she is doing right now. Okay, and I say that again.
But what?
Because
I didn't opine on whether it's evil or not. But my position is it's really none of my business. And
why is it? But I have a question. Why is it none of your business? I mean, you comment on these things for a living.
I'm not mother of the internet.
No, but if this were on the left and somebody were accusing Charlie Kirk of his wife having murdered him, I assume that you would be talking about it.
Is that what Candace is accusing Erica of?
Yes.
Of murdering her own husband?
She's accusing TPUSA insiders and other members of the right wing, including Seth Dillon, of being involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk, yes.
Okay. Like I said, I don't take in that content, which is an honest statement. I don't have time to watch Candace's show.
I believe you. But the point that I'm making is that when
what I
friendship should not, in our business, I think it's important. Listen, friendship should not trump.
We don't even know each other.
I understand, but even with Tucker, friendship should not trump our manifest requirement to speak out when people do and say things that are both detrimental to conservatism and morally wrong.
Okay, so I don't totally disagree, but I think the way of handling that, at least for me, is much different. So I saw things go south between you and Tucker, at least from my vantage point, when you disagreed on Israel. That was obvious. And he was, well, let me just make my point.
Sure.
And so he was saying things that were critical of Israel and our policy towards Israel. And then you did one show where you did what I thought you should have done if you disagreed with him, which clearly you did, which is say what you believe and what you think is factual and educate your audience on what you think are the real facts and give them the evidence for it. But you named him and it felt like an attack. And that, to me, was the beginning of the end, where he was like, now it's on. Because he felt personally attacked by you, as opposed to just challenging his idea. I think you named him and you kind of diminished him. And, he's an 800-pound gorilla, and if you mess with a gorilla, he's going to fight. And to me, that's where it started to go south. And because I remember that day being like, oh, shit. Well, I don't want to see this.
But here's the thing. I would urge everybody to go back and listen to the show that you're referring to, where I criticized Tucker's ideas, not Tucker as a person. Tucker then responded by claiming that I do not love America. That is a direct quote. That I do not love America because I was spending too much time covering the October 7th attacks, and then proceeded in January to then say that I wanted his children to die in a foreign war. Okay, so those are different.
That's a rhetorical
no, it is
point.
not. I'm sorry, it's not. An attack on motivation is a very different thing from an attack on an idea.
His point was that you were sounding like a neocon, and he's upset with anybody who wants us to get too involved in Israel's conflict because he feels it endangers American children.
The idea that, number one, the idea that I want the United States to be directly involved in Israel's conflict is not true.
No, I know that, Ben.
I've been urging Israel to get off of American aid for literally as long as I have been active in politics.
But I'm making clear what his point was.
But my point is that that's not his point. And again, none of this.
So we disagree.
We disagree on the interpretation of what Tucker has been doing for the past 2 years, and it's very difficult for me to believe that Tucker is merely anti-Israel when, for example, today in his newsletter, I mean, I can directly quote it if you'd like. In his newsletter today, he claimed that Zohran Mamdani is not anti-Semitic. This was his newsletter today, this morning. I mean, I'm happy to read the text. It's a little extraordinary because again, it is kind of shocking stuff. So here's what Tucker Carlson wrote in his newsletter today, or what his newsletter says under his name. He said, "Is the incoming mayor a fan of Israel? Does he want America to fight its wars? Not particularly. But a Jew hater? That's a different conversation. We've never seen anything to suggest he falls into that ugly camp. If we're talking about fighting the left, defending Zohran Mamdani, who literally said that he has no opinion whether Hamas should disarm, who posed alongside the 1993 World Trade Center unindicted co-conspirator, who would not disown globalize the Intifada, who suggested that whenever there is a New York Police Department boot on somebody's neck, it's an IDF lacing the strings, to suggest that that's not anti-Semitic in any way. No way.
Okay, but listen.
Or
I'm going to give you a defense of Tucker here, and I don't need to defend Tucker because I'm not Tucker.
Tucker can perfectly
but
well
I'll just say,
defend himself.
I think in general, because I know him and I listen to him and I understand generally where he's coming from. He would say his problems are with Israel, and he would say that shot that Mamdani laid against the IDF is a shot against the IDF. And Israel and how he thinks they're pro-war, not against Jews.
Okay.
And I think
all I can say is when Tucker Carlson finds himself in complete alignment with Zoran Mamdani, it is very difficult for me to believe that he does not agree with Zoran Mamdani.
I think Tucker is in a place right now of the same place that Charlie was getting to toward the end of his life, the same place that some people had tried to drive me, which is you're under withering, nonstop accusations of being something you know you're not. But from some people who you love and who you've been protecting, at least in my case and Charlie's case, for 2 years, who you've been completely defensive of.
Megyn,
and Charlie and I both felt, and because we talked about this on my show, like, what's happening here? Why are they dropping charges of anti-Semitism against us when we love Jews and we're both open Semites? We're Zionists.
So Megyn, you may notice, I'm just talking about me here. Are there people who are overzealous? Sure. Have I ever attacked you?
No, never.
Did I ever attack Charlie publicly about any of this?
No.
Okay, he and I had disagreements behind the scenes. Did I ever?
Like, you get defensive, and I think Tucker's feeling defensive.
By the way, I waited to attack Tucker until he glossed Nick Fuentes, that has nothing to do with Israel. Nick Fuentes hates Jews.
I'm not saying
Tucker
you didn't have a right
him.
to go after him. I think you did what you thought was right, and you felt, and he mentioned you a few times in his interview with Nick Fuentes.
He did, but again, I don't think it's about that, because if he had not mentioned me in that interview with Nick Fuentes, I still would have said something about it, because again, glossing people who are white supremacists is bad electorally on a pragmatic level. A right wing that embraces its own fringes will end up in the same position as a left wing that has embraced its fringes.
Okay, so that's why I want to get into it. Embraces.
Yes.
So now, having spoken to Tucker, I actually see that interview very differently. And I did listen to the interview, and I knew what Nick Fuentes was. And I think he did show himself to be who he is. It wasn't his most vile stuff, but you got the feel for what this guy was. But I really think Tucker was talking to him, Ben, to put like a bumper on this guy. Because what Tucker was urging him the whole time was to understand that collective punishment for any one group of people is wrong. It's deeply immoral, and it's anti-Christian, which this guy is supposed to be, and reminding him of how deeply immoral that is, that you should not be looking at a group of people, whomever it is. The left does it to everyone, whites mostly, but like this collective shame, white men in particular. And there's a group of people like Nick Fuentes that does it to groups of Jews. And he was making the case throughout the whole interview in the way that Tucker does. He's not like you or me. He's not like pointed and cross-examining.
That is not true.
And was making...
That is fundamentally untrue.
No.
Senator Ted Cruz whether that is true.
He gave it to Ted Cruz because Ted Cruz is a politician.
That's hold up. So only politicians get cross-examined?
You don't. Well, look,
Truly?
It depends on the person.
Tucker would never cross-examine a person who is not a politician. That's his rule.
Tucker has excoriated public figures who purport to speak for us and represent us for many years. Nick Fuentes is a podcaster civilian.
Okay, I just have a question. We all in our industry are constantly excoriating people who are in our industry. It happens all the time, every single day.
Okay.
Again,
but we're talking about his interviews.
We can agree to disagree on your interpretation of what Tucker was doing there. I think everybody should watch and determine for themselves what they think Tucker was doing in that interview. And I urge you to watch it back to back with the Ted Cruz interview to determine whether you think that was an aggressive Tucker Carlson interview, and you can judge for yourself.
I didn't say it was aggressive.
A quick message. We all hear about the Palestinian displacement, or Nakba, of 1948. But you know, there was another, even greater displacement that we haven't been told about. Nearly 1 million Jews were expelled from Arab lands at the exact same time. Watch the trailer for our new and absolutely essential documentary called The Real Nakba. And if you want to watch the full film, just click the link below in the video description. We've all been told about the Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe of 1948. Around 700,000 Arabs were displaced.
But here's what you're rarely told. That displacement didn't come from some Jewish plan for genocide. It wasn't Israel's goal. It wasn't Israel's desire. It happened because Arab leaders launched a war of annihilation. They tried to wipe out the newborn Jewish state, vowing to drive the Jews into the sea. And in the chaos of that war, people fled. Many because their leaders told them to, promising they'd return after victory. But the term Nakba was originally used to describe the fact that the Arabs lost the war, not the displacement. Now the term describes the displacement of war used as a political weapon against Israel. But you know, there was another Nakba you haven't been told about. A catastrophe rooted not in the fog of war, but in the clear, deliberate desire for persecution and genocide. It happened at the very same time, and it led to even more displacement. Yet most of the world has never heard of it. Over 850,000 Jews, more than the number of displaced Arabs, were driven from their homes across the Arab world. Communities that had thrived for millennia were uprooted overnight. Families stripped of citizenship, of property, of dignity, assaulted, expelled, forced to flee with nothing but their faith. Why? Because they were Jews. Because Israel dared to exist. Because the Arab League openly orchestrated it, drafting plans in 1947 to freeze Jewish bank accounts, seize property, and intern Jews as enemy nationals. This is the real Nakba, a catastrophe born of pure anti-Semitism. In this JTV documentary, we'll journey country by country, from Baghdad to Cairo, from Sana'a to Tripoli, uncovering buried truths and survivor voices. And no, this isn't a tale of victimhood, it's a saga of endurance, courage, and triumph. Because the Jewish people didn't just survive this Nakba, we rebuilt, we came home. In Israel, our phoenix soared from the ashes. So buckle up and let's dive in. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.
I didn't say it was aggressive, and I don't think he would say it was aggressive.
And
I think his point was, this guy, first of all, he's become a behemoth, sadly. He's got 5 million viewers on Rumble. He's got 1 million followers on X.
I agree.
This is all before Tucker Carlson. And he was platformed, I hate that verb, but he was platformed by Patrick Bet-David. And he went on Dave Smith's show, and he went on another big show. He's been getting more and more purchase in the political ecosphere, including right wing.
And I think that's
Patrick
bad.
Bet-David has a huge show. I know, but
Patrick
did you know that Patrick Bet-David had him on? Did his life blow up?
Patrick Bet-David did a significantly more aggressive interview with Nick Fuentes than Tucker did.
Okay, but my point is simply he's growing. He's growing in stature. And so what I saw Tucker do was not whitewash his ideas, but try to put bumpers up on the guy. I know Tucker well, and I think that was his approach. And the way, if you want to put a bumper up on Nick Fuentes, is it helpful to say, you're fucking vile. You're an anti-Semite.
Yes.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
That doesn't put a.
Yes, it
no,
is.
it isn't. That makes
Yes,
the audience feel good because you have hand-to-hand combat, but it doesn't help change that guy's view or his extremeness at all.
Okay, I'll tell you what doesn't change Nick Fuentes' view. Tucker Carlson with his arm around Nick Fuentes, grinning for the camera, while Nick Fuentes tweets out America first, and then triumphantly goes on the air the next day to explain that he has essentially used Tucker Carlson as a vehicle for manipulating other people. Okay, that's what Nick Fuentes is saying, not me, Nick Fuentes. Okay, and Nick Fuentes, and by the way, I will again say that Tucker Carlson, when you say to somebody in an interview, do you condemn anti-Semitism? And then the person says, sure, which is what Nick Fuentes said. He said, I'm not an anti-Semite, which is blatantly untrue.
Yeah.
A responsible journalist would then follow up, demonstrating that that is false. Tucker did not do that. He allowed him to get away with that, and then he allowed him to talk about, quote-unquote, organized Jewry, followed by Nick Fuentes being treated to a disquisition by Tucker Carlson about why Christian Zionists of all human beings on earth are the people that he hates the most.
He took that back.
You can't take that back. How do you take that back?
He did.
How?
Because he went, he spoke
Then he should explain why it was wrong. He should explain why Christian Zionists are actually wonderful people.
Tucker is very quick to self-flagellate, and he went on with Dave Smith the next day, the next week, whatever, Monday, Tuesday this week, and said, that was stupid. I didn't mean that. He said, I'm angry at people like Lindsey Graham. I'm angry at people like Ted Cruz because he thinks they run headfirst in these conflicts and they don't think about what's going to happen to American kids.
Hold up. If we're talking about firing inside the tent, everything Lindsey Graham, okay, and I'm not a huge Lindsey Graham fan. He votes with the President of the United States 100% of the time, and Tucker spent yesterday's show excoriating him as a psychosexual death worshiper. Does that sound like firing outside the tent? Again, these are the
I'm
questions.
not offended.
Again, the questions that I'm asking here, I'm not asking you to do anything, Megyn.
No, I know.
Okay,
I know.
I'm not.
Our beef is not with each other.
I'm not, okay? When I draw a line with regard to what I believe Tucker Carlson is doing to the conservative movement and what he is fomenting, that is because that is my info, and everyone can make their own decision as to whether they think that I am right or whether I am wrong and where they choose to draw the line with regard to the conservative movement. The question for me is always whether somebody's statements are forwarding moral values that I think are worthwhile. I did not get into this business for the money or for the clicks. You didn't either.
Neither did he.
What was that?
Neither did he.
I mean, he may not have. That's fine. I certainly did not. I'm only going to speak for myself. And what that means for me is that if I see somebody breach basic moral values by having on a Nazi, and in my own view, you can take your own view, in my own view, gloss the Nazi, then I'm going to speak out about that, and I'm going to point out that there is a long pattern of him ideologically laundering terrible ideas over the course of the last 2 years, ranging from traveling to Russia to sniff the bread and explain why the Russian regime is actually wonderful, to saying last week that the Venezuelan regime of Nicolas Maduro is actually not that bad because they're being attacked by, in his words, globo homo.
Tucker's made the point, I'm not going to here to be Tucker's defender, but he's made the point that Maduro is culturally conservative.
Who gives a shit? The guy's a communist dictator. Everyone in his country is eating dog. He's shipping fentanyl to the United States to kill Americans. Why do I give a shit whether he's anti-LGBTQ rights? This is the number one thing about Nicolas Maduro? You know how far down the list you have to get before you can get to anything remotely recommendable about Nicolas Maduro?
I did ask him yesterday about the criticism that he didn't give Nick Fuentes a hard time, right? He didn't bring up the stuff that we've been talking about. No, he didn't. And here's what he said. It seemed to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people who say, why didn't you raise any of that?
You know, do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you.
I agree with him.
By the way,
I agree with him. I agree with him. He did the interview that he wanted to do for a reason.
Here's the other thing I want to say. We all have different approaches in this industry, you know, and there's been a lot that people in podcasting have said that I disagree with, including many of the names that we've discussed tonight.
And we disagree too. I mean, yes, of course.
But, I mean, yes, rarely, but sometimes we do. But my own personal approach, generally when it's someone who's on what I consider to be my side, the side of sanity.
And this is the entire question, is whether I consider Tucker Carlson to be on my side.
I got it. But I would just say, just for the record, my own general approach, and this is my audience here, so they know, is in general, I will take on a position and I will make clear how I feel. For example, I've been asked, and some of my audience is mad at me for this, but what do you think happened to Charlie Kirk? And I believe a man named Tyler Robinson shot and killed Charlie Kirk. I believe he was influenced by trans Tifa, radical trans activists, that he fell in with a lunatic that goes by Lance Twiggs, that guy was extremely radical, and that he and possibly a band of others convinced this guy that violence was the answer. And I believe others knew about it before Charlie was killed. That's what I believe. And until you can show me cold, hard proof that it was something other than that, that's what I'm going with. And I don't want to do or say anything that will jeopardize the FBI investigation and prosecution of that guy to make sure he spends the rest of his life either behind bars or on the wrong end of a firing squad. But so I feel like I can make these points without attacking people who generally are on my side in fighting the deranged leftists who are killing us.
But my point is, so 2 points. One, you have to define your side. You do. There are limits to the
All
side.
the people who don't want to kill others based on their political ideology.
So I would agree with that, except for the fact that, as you showed, Nick Fuentes wants to kill others based on their political ideology.
He's not on my side. He's not with me.
My point is that Tucker treated him as though he was on his side.
And I see it differently. I think he did an exploratory interview where there was a possible attempt to put a bumper up on this guy.
I think that we don't have to go over ground that we've already covered. We can agree to disagree on that, and everyone can make up their own mind after going and watching the interview yourself.
Why don't we do the Larry David? I disagree to disagree. By the way, is it gloss or glaze?
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah.
I mean, gloss, like a glossy,
you have kids who do the brain rot talk. That's what they call it, brain rot. Those terms, like he's got Riz. I don't know. I've got 2 teenagers and a 12-year-old.
I mean, listen, my original verbiage is that Tucker was fluffing him, so I guess that was more G-rated.
That's a porn reference, right?
It is.
It's a porn reference. Yeah, he's not afraid to say it. So let me ask you this. There's some risk to both of you in this. You know, it's like Godzilla and King Kong having this battle. There's some risk to both of you because you both have very large shows, very large audiences, and there's probably some overlap, or at least there would have been 2 years ago. So is this in any way, did you feel any reluctance to, have this?
Okay, so I was reluctant because, again, he and I had texted about the idea of orienting in the same direction, and then I decided that we were, in fact, not oriented in the same direction. Okay, but am I worried about, the career risks? No, because to me there's sort of a Laffer curve when it comes to influence. So famously when it comes to economics and the Laffer curve, the idea is that if you tax everybody at 0%, you receive 0 tax revenue. If you tax everybody at 100%, you also receive 0 tax revenue because everyone stops working. I think there's an influence curve as well, because I thought about this a lot before this.
This is so Ben. Who goes to the Laffer curve to bring home the point about this is so smart, but then he knows that we don't know what he's talking about, so he defines it.
So if you have no influence, but you speak out a lot, then you have no influence. If you have tons of influence and you don't speak out when it's appropriate, you also really have no influence. And so for me, the question becomes, when is it important to speak out? And Megyn, you and I have been talking behind the scenes about many of these same issues for a very long time. And so you know that you've known me for a very long time. I'm pretty good at conflict, but I don't like conflict. Yeah. I really don't.
You've been trying to put this one behind you guys for a long time.
A very, very long time, consistently. For a very long time. In fact, for 2 years, I can read older text messages. After that initial blow-up where Tucker was suggesting I have dual loyalty and all of this, I literally texted him and I said, Tucker, we seem to have gotten crossways somehow. I would love for you to come on my show. I'd be happy to come on your show. We'll do it. And he proceeded to ghost me for 2 years. Okay, so
he was not in a headspace. I didn't talk to him about this, but my assumption is he was not in the right headspace to
for
have
2
a
years is a long time to be not in the right headspace.
Well, but look at the 2 years we've had, right? Look at the 2 years. It's all related to Israel. It's all related to Israel.
I do not agree. I disagree. I fundamentally disagree.
He wasn't picking fights with you before the Israeli conflict.
It wasn't about picking fights over Israel. Okay, again. You're trying to turn it into he picked a fight with me or I picked a fight with him.
No,
for me, the question is the principles.
It blew up over the past 2 years.
I don't think that it's a coincidence that obviously anti-Semitism simultaneously blew up with the war of October 7th.
Yes,
that's
but also
true.
So has conflict and controversy involving feelings over Israel.
Of course. And now the war has been over for several weeks, and Tucker Carlson is writing newsletters about how Zoran Mamdani is not an anti-Semite. What does that have to do with Israel?
I think that's a hangover from being called an anti-Semite at every turn and feeling angry about it.
You know what? I'm a little tired of the excuse that if you are called something enough, that justifies all of the subsequent activity. I've been called every goddamn name in the book. Every name in the book, and I have not. But I have not shifted my positions because people call me names. That is a childish thing to do.
Ben, with all due respect,
and pardon the language,
you did not have an entire country call you a Nazi for the past week. I think he's in a defensive place right now on charges of anti-Semitism.
I'm not interested in his psychotherapy, Megyn.
I am. I love him as I love you.
Well, you know what? And that's why I started this off by saying you're empathetic and you're a wonderful person and you're a good friend, and I think that. There's a reason why in the medical industry you don't operate on your friends or your relatives.
But you're telling me I need to.
I'm not telling you. No,
that's what I'm trying not to do.
No, Megyn, actually, I haven't said that one time here.
Well,
I said that's why I'm doing it.
I know, but there are many people
and you're urging me
like,
not to. And I'm saying that is not a move that I can make because Tucker has already closed the door to the idea that we are on the same side.
But he hasn't closed the door to détente. Let me show you another soundbite. Let me just show you one more. But is there any way that you and Ben Shapiro can actually find your way to détente?
I'm not against Ben Shapiro. He did like a 40-minute thing yesterday calling me dangerous and all this stuff. It's like, I didn't watch it because why? But I got a lot of texts about it, and it's like, I don't think Ben Shapiro is driving a lot of this stuff. I don't consider him like the world's greatest force for evil. I don't feel that way at all. I don't actually think about him ever. So I don't want to have a war with Ben Shapiro. I don't know does he really think that me doing an interview in which I explained that anti-Semitism is wrong to one of the lead purveyors of anti-Semitism, that somehow makes me a Nazi? Like, what is the argument here?
I'm going to ask him tomorrow night.
No, but I don't even understand what the argument is. All I know is that the right, and I've been on the right since before Ben was born, is acting like the left in such an amazingly precise way that I'm like, what the hell is going on?
I agree with Tucker that the right is in fact acting like the left by, again, massaging its radicals in the name of some sort of faux unity.
That does not sound détente.
Because
can it
again,
happen?
I'm not, again, trying to turn this personal is a mistake.
I know, but can it happen? If you, like that person who sent
Megyn,
those texts from your end,
the
is that
only
person
way-
still willing to sit with him and work something out?
When Tucker changes his positions, then sure.
Yeah, so
if
you're
he
done.
does not change his positions, then no, because I'm not in politics to be friends with people. I have children, I have a wife, I have a dog, I have an extended family, and I have
he
friends
doesn't want to be
outside
friends
of
with you
this.
either, Ben. It's about
Yes, but what you're
uniting the right so that we can fight the right enemy on the left. And Tucker is of the right, and Tucker has been fighting for
Okay,
a lot of these ideals for a
Tucker-
long time, and he's changed this country fundamentally for
I'm
the
not
better.
saying Tucker has never been a wonderful advocate for anything on the right, because I don't think that's true. I think in the past, he was a great advocate for many things on the right, particularly on the immigration issue, for sure. I'm saying that's not what he is doing now. I do not think he is advocating for right-wing positions. He is not conservative than I am by any stretch of the imagination on any possible issue. And when it comes to the question as to whether he is actually making the conservative movement more likely to lose by attacking inside the tent significantly more often than anyone else on the right, while simultaneously massaging, again, watch the interview, massaging the nation's leading white supremacist, I'm sorry, there's no détente with those positions. Forget about the person, there's no détente with those positions.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Was this a good discussion? I mean, honestly, I give you tons of credit for coming and doing this. It's such a crazy thing for me that I had him booked last night and I had you booked tonight, and then you guys wound up in this. But part of me loves that, I can talk to both of you, but part of me hates this because I don't like it.
I hate it too. This idea that I'm like seeking conflict, again, I'm not.
I know.
It's idea driven.
I know.
If the ideas are bad, I am against them.
I get it.
If the ideas are good, I am for them. End of story.
I get it.
Before you go, you have to check out the trailer for our new documentary on Moshiach, the Jewish belief about the Messiah, what he will do, how the world will look after his coming, and why his arrival is close. And if you want to watch the full thing, just click the link below in the video description. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have carried a promise that history is not a random cycle, that suffering and darkness and exile are not the end of the story, that one day the world will be redeemed and the Messiah, the Moshiach in Hebrew, will come. But what does that actually mean? Who is Moshiach? When will he come? How will we know he's real? Why would God design a world that waits so long for redemption in the first place? And what will life feel like after he comes? With AI and machines beginning to replace work, maybe we're already catching a glimpse. But then what will we do with our days? The prophets spoke of that world long ago. In this groundbreaking JTV Plus documentary, we uncover the truth about the Jewish vision of the Messiah, who he is, why it matters, and why his coming could be closer than you think. Join us as we reveal the truth about history's most anticipated figure. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.